Since the 1800s, communication in history has changed dramatically over time, whether that is communicating with others or how objects can communicate to yourself. Communication helps guide us in understanding the way of life. Blind and visually impaired people get their communication in multiple ways, but three main ways are through Braille, the white cane, and a Cranmer abacus. 6.8% of students under the age of 18 across the United States of America are blind or visually impaired. Faith is one of those students. She has had a special teacher alongside her since she was 6 months old to help her grow up like any other kid. Her teacher, Miss Marianne, is a teacher of the visually impaired, which is also called a vision teacher. Miss Marianne has taught 8 to 10 students just like Faith. Faith's parents found out she was blind shortly after she was born. We first see Faith a couple of days after she is born when she is headed to the NICU. As Faith grows up, before she goes to school, Miss Marianne goes to her house once a week. She is teaching her and her family many valuable lessons and resources because Faith doesn't know anything different. Learning to crawl, learning to walk, eating, and playing with toys are things most toddlers learn by seeing and or doing. When you grow up without sight, it can be scary. Faith learned how to walk, talk, eat, and play over an extended period of time with different strategies. As a special education student, Faith started school at the age of 3 in an early childhood special education class.
Where do you want to go?
School.
Now that she has started school, she will continue to see Miss Marianne, but this increases to 2 to 3 times a week to help Faith and the school staff teach her the same things that the other students are learning, but in different ways. When most kids first go to school, they see colors, shapes, numbers, and letters all around them in their hallways and classrooms. Since Faith cannot see that, she began to learn textures and shapes with Braille letters on all possible things. Everything that belonged to Faith that she would touch was labeled with her name in Braille. Braille is a form of communication used by blind and visually impaired people, providing them the ability to read and write. Each Braille cell consists of 6 raised dots, arranged 2 dot by 3 dot. With 64 different arrangements, it is now possible to understand any written communication through Braille. Louis Braille, an innovative Frenchman in the 1800s, was completely blind by the age of 5, after playing with his father's cobbler tool. In 1820, at the age of 11, an idea sparked after learning about the night rider system invented by Charles Barbier, a French army officer. Barbier's intention was for a system soldiers could use during the night time on the battlefield. His system consisted of 12 raised dots. His system was ultimately determined too complex for soldiers to learn and use in the dark. Louis Braille decided that he would find a way to simplify the night rider to help him and people like him stay in touch with the written culture. From 1820 to 1829, he consistently kept putting in the work to finalize his system of just 6 raised dots. Louis Braille passed away in 1853 at the age of 43. By this time, his innovative system known as Braille had not been recognized as an official communication system. Just a year after his death in 1854, the country of France embraced Braille as its official communication system for blind individuals. 6 years later, in 1860, it was adopted by the Missouri School for the Blind in America. Now Braille is used all over the world in a variety of languages.
I think at this point in Faith's education, everyone, including hers, favorite moment was the day she realized that boring Braille letters went together and she could read.
Once Faith was familiar with the textures and shapes, as her pre-kindergarten class was learning about letters, the real learning of Braille began. She would use Braille flashcards, Braille puzzles, Braille books, and Braille blocks following the classroom's instructional plan. During this same period, Faith was introduced to the white cane to help her navigate her new elementary school environment. The white cane started out as a normal walking cane. However, in 1930, George Bonham watched a blind man try to cross the street with a black cane that was very hard to see. Bonham proposed that canes for the blind and visually impaired community should be painted white with a red stripe. In 1937, Michigan began promoting the white cane as a symbol for those who are blind. A bill was then written and proposed that any carrier of the white cane is protected while on the streets of Michigan. In 1944, Richard E. Hoover created the Hoover method. The Hoover method is when the user swishes the cane back and forth to see if there are any obstacles in their way. In 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson established October 15th White Cane Day in an effort to raise awareness for those who use a cane. It is now celebrated across the country.
When other children ask me what Faith's cane is, I tell them it is her eyes. I can tell Faith all day long, there is a cart against the wall, you need to go around it. Faith has never seen a cart. With her cane, she can feel the cart is hard and how long it is. The next time I tell her there's a cart against the wall, she will know that it is going to take her 2 to 3 steps away from the wall before she is past it. This gives her confidence when she is walking. I know that I take for granted a lot of times that she knows what I'm talking about. I've also learned that over there, right here, and that way means nothing to her. Go past the blue table has no meaning either. Faith practices her routes at this age while learning her cane skills.
The white cane is used to gain information through tactile communication with the environment. The information is then relayed from the tip of the cane up to the grip of the cane, so the user can then decipher that information and respond to it appropriately.
Okay, there's more to left. Okay, now we turn left. Where are you, Miss Marianne?
Faith's orientation and mobility specialist, Miss Latanya, taught her to swish her cane back and forth, left to right and right to left, usually coming into contact with the wall on her left side. When Faith's cane would hit something other than the floor, she was initially taught to stop. She was also taught a route around the school. She would always take the same route to help her become aware of where she is at all times and learn the layout of the school. As she progressed with her orientation and mobility skills, she was taught how to navigate around obstacles safely that may be in her path, such as people, desks, and water fountains. When Faith began full-day kindergarten, it was time to introduce yet another tool that would communicate information to her. Miss Marianne introduced her to the abacus and taught her how to count on it. The abacus Faith uses is a Cranmer abacus. This abacus is a modification of the Japanese abacus. The abacus has 13 rods with a crossbar. Above the bar, there is 1 bead, and below there are 4. In each row, a bead represents a different place value. Terence Cranmer created this specific type of abacus in 1962 while working for the Kentucky Division of Rehabilitation Services for the Blind. A few years later, it was placed on the market by American Printing House for the Blind, where it continues to be sold today. This tool is used to help with counting and math with blind and visually impaired students. Blind and visually impaired students can use this tool like others use a calculator or a number line. When Faith's class was learning their sight words, Faith had her own version of sight words used universally by blind and visually impaired people called short form words. Most of the alphabet letters, when they are not connected to another word, have a specific word meaning. Examples are the letter C is the word can, the letter F is the word from, and the letter K is the word knowledge. As Faith was progressing with Braille letter identification, it was time to learn to write Braille herself. To do so, she had to be introduced to another tool called the Braille Writer.
Faith, what is your favorite part about Braille?
Using the Braille Writer.
The Braille Writer is also referred to as a Braille printer. These devices simply are the way that blind and visually impaired people write. All throughout kindergarten, Faith was continuing to learn how to write single alphabet letters with her Braille Writer, how to navigate a hallway using her white cane, and how to count by using an abacus. As Faith was finishing kindergarten, the coronavirus hit America, causing all schools to shut down, and her time with Miss Marianne was limited. Miss Marianne sent home a variety of materials she had been using in class. Using phone calls and video conferences, Miss Marianne and her teachers at school would check in on Faith's progress with learning Braille and her abacus.
Sure they don't need a few more,
W.
As first grade arrived and she was back at school, Faith was set back a little bit, but kept up her good work. Now learning how to do simple addition and subtraction on her abacus, and learning how to read and write more complex words. Faith was also able to communicate in a written way, just like her friends. Now, in 2021, Faith is learning Braille as if it is nothing. She enjoys writing with her own Braille writer. She loves going to music class, PE, and lunch. Although she sometimes finds Braille boring, Braille is one of her keys to understanding the written word.